Hello, and welcome to the Spec Shaman Podcast, a show that explores the world of building product manufacturers, architects and engineers, sustainable design, and technology and trends. We engage in thought-provoking discussions with renowned experts, industry pioneers, and visionaries who are making a significant impact in the construction industry. Join us as we explore groundbreaking ideas, revolutionary concepts, and the latest advancements shaping the built environment. The Spec Shaman Podcast is hosted by Laura Elliott, the lead instructional designer at Ron Blank and Associates. Laura is a seasoned interviewer with a passion for uncovering the untold stories behind success. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Let's get started.
In this episode of the Spec Shaman Podcast, we discuss drinking from the fountain of knowledge on the built environment, the importance of credibility over bottom lines, and the connection between altruism, education, and architectural specification. We are joined by the accomplished Roy F. Schauffele, president and founder of Division 7 Solutions Incorporated. Schauffele is an internationally published author and speaker in energy conservation and sustainable building envelopes. He is also a multiple award winner from Build San Antonio Green, a former elected official, and Texas Senate appointee. Hi, Roy. Good morning. How are you?
Laura, I'm doing great today. Thank you for asking.
That's wonderful. It's great to hear. I'm excited to have a conversation with you, and I'm going to go ahead and start with our first question. Could you provide an overview of how you got started and ended up where you are now?
I can, but it covers 5 decades, and I'll be fairly brief. The first third of my career started out in research and development for a variety of Fortune 500 and actually a Fortune 50 firm. I became their technical director, and it dawned on me back in the day that I was driving a 1976 Plymouth Duster slant 6 engine with a stick shift, and all the guys in sales and marketing were driving Audis and Beamers. And although I enjoyed my time in research and development, I realized that those who were in sales and marketing and working with the architects had a greater opportunity for their personal income growth. And being a very good American capitalist, I chose to pursue that path. So for the last, I would call it 40 years, I've been in marketing and sales, mainly architectural marketing and sales. And the last 37 years, I have owned my own firm by the name of Division 7 Solutions.
Well, that's exciting. How did you get that one started?
I was inspired by the great President Ronald Reagan when he gave that speech about the shining city on the hill. So I formed Division 7 Solutions and opened it up on July the 4th, 1987.
Well, congratulations on your recent anniversary then.
Thank you.
How does your company innovate as the market has changed over the last 3 or 4 decades since you've been in business?
It's been very interesting changes in our business. A lot of the folks that I deal with, you've got to be architects mainly or consultants. You've got to be able to demonstrate your knowledge and skills. Back at the turn of the century, and sort of like that term, back at the turn of the century, everyone thought that the internet was going to replace all product representation. Quite the opposite. It's created a new niche for those who can perform at a very high level with the architects and the consultants. In other words, we become, as human beings, we become their Wikipedia. So over the years, I've seen an awful lot of changes to electronics or internet communications, and that's really not a conversation. That's just an information flow. There's no context or whatnot. When I lecture for the Spec Shaman School, I do an 1.5-hour presentation about how to get to see an architect, how to work with an architect, and what they do and don't do, and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So there have been changes impacted by the electronic world or any electronic communication, but it's still a person-to-person business. That is the art of architectural selling, and that art has been lost over the years, and the Spec Shaman School is the best school to learn that art in today's world, period. There is not even a close second.
Well, that's high praise. Thank you so much for that compliment. I know that building those relationships really matters here at RBA, and it's really nice to hear your perspective on it. When you're teaching those relationships and communication skill sets, how does the evolution of building products, how does that impact those conversations?
Well, the evolution has been towards sustainability and green.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been very good leaps in technology in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this is being driven by the U.S. Green Building Council, which influences the building codes. Some of the green technology did not work out so well. It was way beyond. Some of the codes throughout the United States, and ideal throughout the United States, had requirements in there where the product technology wasn't there yet. So consequently, the code required one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but no one could supply.
Mm-hmm.
So the conveyance of that sustainability, the green aspect of it, not harming the environment, has really become a crucial role. I'm a chemist by education. The chemistry has changed greatly,
Right.
from even the raw material acquisition viewpoint to how materials are manufactured.
So do you feel like your company plays a role in that evolution by connecting maybe the goals of a sustainability driven market and the actual technology behind it?
Yes, we have driven a lot of the green aspects in the state of Texas. And I'll give you an example. We were the first firm in Texas to embrace air barrier technology. Air barriers are relatively new in the code. They came into the code nationwide in 2015. They have been in the code in Massachusetts since 2002.
Hmm.
We entered that business in 1999. We could see what was happening with the future.
Right.
And air barriers by themselves will save a building 40% energy. And that's a huge leap in technology.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, both combining the air barrier technology with insulation in the building, insulation that no longer uses CFCs, insulation that can be reused or recycled at the end of its lifetime, combined with air barrier technology, our buildings are substantially more efficient than they ever have been. And the design factor is now the entire building envelope. All 6 sides of the building are now thermally efficient, reducing the carbon footprint of that building.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been the biggest arena that we have played in, and we have driven some of that. My firm, when we could not get someone to manufacture what we thought the market needed, we went into manufacturing up in Comfort, Texas, as a matter of fact. Yeah. And that was a pretty interesting few years. I had a full head of hair before I became a manufacturer, but just joking, it's tough. But our plant was green. We used all water-based materials. We used everything. Mm-hmm. We had no waste products at the firm.
Oh, so that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Even the 5-gallon buckets that we downloaded our materials into were recycled plastic.
That's great. So it was a net zero initiative.
Exactly. So there was a huge movement from year 2000 for the first 10 years, driven by codes, driven by USGBC, driven by the USGBC LEED program to come up with more sustainable products. Now, what RBA does is they can provide a manufacturer with that documentation on an environmental product, documents and EPDs, in other words. And that's a service that Ron Blank and Associates does provide to the industry. I can only urge the manufacturers, you may think you know what you're doing, but you better hire an expert.
I know that we really strive very hard to make sure that we can guide those initiatives so that they're successful. I know Environmental Elixir does really wonderful work in helping those manufacturers navigate a lot of those codes and criteria to make sure that they're meeting the mark. So, did you see sustainability as the biggest transformation over the last decades, or you think that kind of goes hand in hand with technology? Are there any other huge transformations that you've seen?
Well, the transformations I've seen is the architectural community, design professional, has become more reliant on the internet. Architects don't really enjoy people. Their perspective, my opinion, their perspective is that people screw up their buildings. Okay, you build these wonderful buildings and then people go in there and just mess around with everything. So they've designed a very thermally efficient, gorgeous building, or a sustainable building, and then humans go in there and keep tweaking and playing around with settings that they shouldn't touch. But the internet has become a primary source of initial information to the architect, but it's got to be backed up by that context and a human knowledge point. The Construction Specification Institute calls it the trusted advisor. And that's really what I have been for the last 30 years here in Texas and effectively nationwide. As indicated earlier, by request, I've given over 1,000 AIA learning units over these many, many years.
So then you've definitely seen firsthand the evolution, not only in the trades, right, in the manufacturing and design process, but also the way that the education is delivered. I would be interested to hear your perspective on that. How has the education market shifted to meet a growing industry?
Number one, again, electronically. Zoom meetings. I had never done a Zoom meeting until COVID hit. Whole new technology, fantastic technology. I mean, you think back to the old TV show Star Trek. They had the first floppy disk on. They did. They really did. They had the first floppy disk that Mr. Spock used. But you look at where we've come. So the delivery systems are critical. Now, one of the problems with the delivery system like Zoom is you better have a damn good learning unit. Right. And you better be a good speaker. Right. The days of the speakers walking up to and reading their PowerPoint presentation are over. You will lose your audience in 5 to 8 minutes. You will not be able to make the points that you make. But again, the marketing has changed too. My firm will only give HSW rated AIA learning units. Okay. Why? That's what the principals of the firm and the design professionals need to maintain their state licensing. Right. And again, this is where Ron Blank and Associates comes in. They do guide the manufacturers that come to them into that arena, saying, no, you don't want to do just this AIA learning unit because you won't get the decision makers in the room. You get a bunch of really good young architects, but you're not reaching the people who will make the decision that affects your product or your technology. So that's been a big change. I see that many of the poor speakers over time have been weeded out. They become known. Architects by nature, design professionals by nature are nomadic. They're with a firm for 5 to 8 years. Then they move to another firm. So the information in this business spreads out throughout the country, not just by the internet, but also by migration.
So like a knowledge diffusion.
Exactly.
That's interesting. And the challenges to the manufacturing process over this span of time, how do you recommend people overcome them? Do you think education is key?
Education is absolutely key. As a sharing, which I share in some of my lectures, my firm never, ever made a quote sales call to an architect. We never made a project call to an architect unless the architect called us. Everything my firm did, and it took 3 years to do this, we educated the architect about the product technology that we either represented or manufactured without talking about the jobs they had on the books. We established our credibility as their technical resource, their go-to person, without having our hand out for a purchase order or a sale. So we took a very altruistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
It took 3 years and a lot of my money to get to that point, but we proved ourselves time and time again, where eventually we were receiving the phone calls from the architects saying, I've got a Division 7 problem in roofing or in insulation. Can you come in?
Mm-hmm.
Bingo. We had made it, but we were always very neutral. We were very honest. And I do remember a project in San Antonio, a large architectural firm had, and this is probably nearing the second year of business. I was not really able to put food on the table at that point. And the architect asked me a question. They said, Roy, we wrote the spec around you. There's this product that was submitted. Is it an equal? It's a huge project. I took a deep breath, swallowed hard, and said, yes, it is. So I lost that project. There's the Marriott River Center downtown San Antonio. Huge project.
Oh, man.
And I literally had just paid my income tax bill with my credit card. So it lets you know where we're at. But at that point, that reputation was solidified that you can call Roy and you're going to get the right answer.
Right. So credibility really does carry a great deal of weight in this industry.
And it's not just credibility. You've got to be able to get in front of that architect, that design professional.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is where your group comes in. They do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you conduct your resident Dallas Cowboy freak on staff, Chris Massey.
Chris is a great guy.
Chris is a great guy. He's just got a very myopic view on good football. But with that, he gets you in front of those architects. You know, I'm not part of your presentation core group.
Mm-hmm.
If you're short a speaker, you were kind enough to give me a call, but you're putting 40 people, 40 design professionals in a room at each one of these cities around the country.
Mm-hmm.
It would take you many months as an individual to make those appointments and get to them.
Yeah.
So the mass education that y'all do, getting a whole group of people in, that's the key to success, because it takes too long otherwise. So, but you've got to be able to speak to the right people at the right decision level, or LOA, level of authority, to include your product technology in their design. You also need to do a little research. You know, what type of firm is it? What type of firm is it? What do they do? You know, if they build buildings in Alaska, you better have your stuff together to talk about cold weather effects.
Right.
If they're building, and I've been involved with some of these, like embassy work, you'll never be told where the embassy is going to be located for security reasons, but you will be told about the climate.
Right.
And so you've got to tailor your presentation to what that architect does. But more importantly, you got to have the credibility to get in front of that architect. Your firm, again, RBA, has that credibility. They will get you in front.
I know that we really try hard to maintain the reputation of a place that people can come to for that kind of conversation. When you're discussing these things with them, do you find that there are case studies or notable projects that are really useful, especially when you're sharing your own products?
If they're local, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Architects, they're nomadic. We discussed that, but they're also territorial. They want to know if you have a project in their neck of the woods that's about 5 years or older, and they want to see that. And you do that with case studies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody has testing data. It's required by the law. It's required by the code. So everyone has their testing data. Architects look at that and go, that's very nice. What do you have here?
Mm-hmm.
Then once you can say, well, here's a list of the jobs nearby you can go look at, or here's a couple case studies from this area.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be down the street. It could just be in the general geo-specific area.
Yeah.
Because they deal with climate issues also. They deal with building codes in that area. They need to know that your product has been used.
Yeah, I know that definitely, even with the new CR2 ratings and things like that, regionality is playing a huge role
That's
in the
correct.
successfulness of implementing project design. For young professionals that are entering the construction and design trades, do you have any strong recommendations that you would give them or any advice?
Yes, I would like to share it, and I'm not telling you what to do. This is experience, just experience speaking. I do lecture at University of Texas, San Antonio. I do. Yeah. Is that where you went?
Oh no, but my son is doing an athletic training program there. So I just was on campus yesterday.
Huh. Which sport is he in?
He is interested in track and field and baseball. So
We need to talk afterwards.
absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
But when you look at that, and I enjoy lecturing to the
Mhm.
younger guys, younger people, guys. I'm from South Philadelphia. Guys is everyone. Okay.
Oh, are you? So are you
Yes.
an Eagles fan?
Actually, I was signed by them.
You were?
Yep.
What
And
position?
quarterback.
No way.
We're going back 50 years.
That's
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah. Never saw the field. So
Yeah.
did I play? No. Did I sign? Yes.
Hey.
It happens.
Amazing.
And that was one of the gold medals I won in the Senior Olympics in April.
No way.
For football. Yeah. Football throwing, accuracy, timing, speed. But, when you're working with the younger architects, you don't want to come off as like, oh, back in the day. You want to share information.
Right.
You want to present information to them in a way that they can absorb it. They are hungry for information. They drink from the fountain of knowledge.
Right.
Give it to them.
Right.
Don't talk at them.
Right.
Talk with them.
Right.
And one of the things I always urge, and it's worked out very well for me in my career, to rookies coming into the business, keep a notebook, keep a sacred national book of secrets. And you have in there a list of the people that you can call who you trust in this business.
Right.
Yeah, they're probably salespeople. And that's a bad connotation. They're really architectural reps.
Right.
And a big difference between a salesperson and an architectural rep, which is what you all teach. So, but with that, keep that book sacred, because somewhere in whatever division you're working or whatever section you're working, you're going to need to be able to pick up the phone, call an expert in that arena, and have a good relationship with them to where they will take the 10 to 15 minutes to advise you properly. That's huge.
No, I definitely have noticed that. As the lead instructional designer, I meet a lot with the marketing side of product manufacturing. And what I have really learned is that those guys really know what they're talking about. They're not there to sell you something just for the sake of selling it. And in fact, when we're tailoring our courses, I notice that they say, don't put that in there because that's not true. More often than not, they don't want something that isn't authentic or has the integrity that they work hard to build, to share. And I think that that's incredibly impressive, because I think they could try to oversell or over deliver. And I noticed that more times than not, they don't. They want to be a source of knowledge first. Right.
And your reputation is really all you have.
Right.
So you've got to be able to deliver in a timely fashion.
Right.
Many of the product reps I deal with don't return voicemail until the next day. If an architect is calling me, they need help then. Right. Then and there. Right. And that's how our firm was built. We will return all phone calls in 1 hour.
That's an important mission.
and it is, but for the younger folks, keep that book of secrets with you. Right. When you intern in the summer, talk to the head spec writer or the head technical person. Who do they deal with? Steal their list. Okay. Right. Steal it. Just take it, get a copy of it. But there's a lot of folks out there. I'm not bragging, but I've got patents in roofing. I've got patents in walls. I've innovated some things, and over the years, published a lot. Have a lot of initials after my name. Right. And this is all builds that credibility to where no matter how old the architect, young or I don't say old anymore, seasoned, okay, young or seasoned,
Yeah.
you want to have that source, that reference, make it your own Wikipedia.
Right. Right. No, I mean, my background is really academic, and I would always try to find the most seasoned professor in my space and spend as much time learning as much as I could from them. And there's such value in that. So do you feel like orienting yourself to being a knowledge hub is how you approach your marketing and promoting your building products?
That is 100% of how we're established from day one. That was our mission. Mm-hmm. Our mission was to be not the biggest, but the best architectural rep firm that ever hit the state of Texas. And is that an egotistical statement? No, that was a desire. That was a want. Because I saw what was out there in Texas, and my competition really wasn't providing that to the design community. I wanted to be the one that they called. I wanted to be the one they respected. And that was a personal drive on my part.
Where did you find your source of information? Where were your favorite places to learn to be that knowledge hub?
At that time, it was a lot of the seasoned professionals, but studying the history of the business that you were in. For instance, it may sound a little goofy, but you look at foam plastic insulation. Well, that's had quite the history over the years. Roofing, another area, has had a long history. I mean, I know of a roof at the Erie-Lackawanna terminal station that is 123 years old. It's a flat roof.
No way.
It's made with burlap and coal tar pitch. But if you go back into history, and when you sit down with the design professional, one of the benefits I had as a chemist, I can tell them why it didn't work. I didn't knock a product or a manufacturer. This is why this system did not work. And again, the changes in the business. When we started out, everything was chlorofluorocarbons, best refrigerant. Now they don't exist in any of the insulation products.
Right.
And you're really talking a 30-year change, which is not that long. So learn your business, learn your competition, top to bottom.
Do you think, go ahead. No, I was going to say, do you think those adjustments have been the biggest challenge to maybe getting products specified? Yes,
it's been one of the biggest challenges. The other challenge, very honestly, is some very poor representation in sales and marketing. I hear many complaints about, well, this guy came in and I asked him a bunch of questions and he only knew his product. That doesn't help me. I need to know how. And the key issue for a product rep, you need to know how that particular technology, which is desired by the design professional, fits into their project. They may want to use it, but as you indicated earlier, we have to say no sometimes.
Right.
I had one architectural firm in the lower Rio Grande Valley said, Roy, we've been doing it this way for 40 years. Yes. Is there anything wrong with the product? No. Then why are you saying don't use it? Because the fire code changed and that product no longer met the fire code. He said, well, I didn't hear that from manufacturer F or D or, whomever. I said, well, you got a bad rep. So ask him again to provide the data. And the architect called me back 3 weeks later. Said, oh my God, thank you. He said, I didn't tell you, but we were designing a school, a grade school, an elementary school.
Right.
And we would have built it this way and we would have been violated the national fire code. Yep.
Yeah. Can't mess with NFPA.
No.
It's a solid book.
You will go to jail.
Yeah.
Things like that. So our whole firm and what you all do at your firm, you give information. You literally give information. You give knowledge. And it's up to the product manufacturers to realize how to get that knowledge into the marketplace to the architects.
Right.
Y'all are pretty good vehicles for that.
Yeah, we do. I typically have an entire section dedicated to those codes, specifically because of how important it is. And it really does give that information out.
So there's no one silver bullet that kills
Mhm.
the vampire or the werewolf, the werewolf.
Yeah.
But there are many things that come together. Nothing's a standalone in this business.
Mhm.
Nothing works by itself.
Mhm.
So when you're looking to the future,
Mhm.
internet's great. No two
Yeah.
ways about it.
Right.
But you have to add context to that. The context is added by the human component, but the human component has got to be extremely well trained, well spoken,
Right.
and know more of a gestalt knowledge of everything that's out there, including your competition, because nothing gives you more credibility than saying, no, I think you really ought to use manufacturer A in that. Well, isn't he your competitor? Yeah, they are, but use them. You're better off,
Right.
and your credibility just rises
Right.
geometrically.
Right.
So
That's definitely important. When it comes to sustainability, do you find that credibility is easy to attain, or because of the evolving nature of the sustainability initiatives, does it create some challenges?
it can create great challenges for a medium to small manufacturer. They don't have the financial resources in-house that, say, a Fortune 50 company has.
Right.
So they're going to need help. Fortune 50 company needs help also, but they don't know it at first. It dawns on them later on, after they get thrown out of a few offices, that they need to hire someone to put this stuff, someone expert in that arena to put it together. So you do need this information. Much of it is law now. Much of it is desired by the design professionals, and it's in their code of conduct to have that happen. The design professionals' code of conduct, that's what they want. End of discussion. And there's a huge drive for net zero or carbon neutral. It's aspirational at this point. It is not factual, difficult to get to technologically, maybe too difficult to get to financially, but it's an aspirational goal that we need to strive for. But you need the backup with all your green data to support it. And recommend you hire someone to do it, because you're not an expert in it as a manufacturer.
Yes. And it's an interesting dichotomy too, between like a product that's sustainable versus a sustainable manufacturing process.
Yes.
And so one of the things that we notice a lot is that, a company might not realize what they have in their process that really contributes to sustainability.
It is. And it's funny you mention that, Laura. One of the plants that I visited, they were making, very important for Texas, impact or hail resistant shingles.
Right.
For residential. And that gives you, in some areas of Texas, 20% discount, 25% discount on your insurance for your home.
Yes.
But when I went to the plant, I found out that all the little cutouts for the dimensional shingles, just those little 3/4 inch wide sheets of shingles that were cut out to as waste, quote unquote, they were taking them and using them as a roadway bed, as a base for roadways. And what a great use. Yeah. What a great use. They would take all those cutouts that 30 years ago would have been thrown into a landfill. A guy came by, firm came by with their little dump truck, and they would dump it into the dump truck, and he would take it out as he was paving roadways. So everything's being used and reused much more intelligently now.
Yes, the multi-purpose of a product is really an important one. So do you have any final thoughts or advice that you would like to share?
As far as manufacturers go, I urge you not to be so inward looking. You need to look out. There are experts there that can add to your efforts. Your intentions are good as a manufacturer, but you will need outside help. And Laura, you said it best. They may have processes internal to manufacturing that they don't even know could be of great benefit to them,
Mm-hmm.
or that would help them become a perceived more green firm. As far as architectural representation, architectural reps, it's truly an art. It is not a science, and it has to be taught and learned.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get to some of the courses that are out there to learn this aspect of it, learn from the best, go to school, take the courses, you're going to be 1,000 times better off, even down to tiny details.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I lecture about is if you have just met an architect for the first time, the very first time, you've taken up, don't ever, folks, if you're out there listening to me, don't ever take up more than 15 minutes of an architect or design professional's time unless you're asked to, because margins are thin right now.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be working in billing hours.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get back to your office, take the time to write a thank you letter, handwrite it. Okay. Include your business card in there. That's acceptable. But just say, hey, look, I know you're up against it. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate the audience you gave me. Sign your name, put your card in there. No one does that anymore. And you would be amazed at just something like that, what effect that has for your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, since no one gets any mail anymore, you mail that thank you card. And they're like, wow, what's this? That's a postage stamp, and that's an envelope. And and it has a great effect. So that's my advice for the young architects, young design professionals. Find your book of secrets. Find your book of knowledge. They're upright. They got 2 little legs. They got 2 arms, 2 hands. Find out from your more seasoned people who the hell they deal with, and go from there. But most importantly, education, education, education. From the manufacturer's viewpoint, educate the architects. Don't sell them. Educate them. For the design professionals, take the education available to you that's HSW rated, because that's the good courses.
So the rating really does matter.
It does. And again, Laura, it's not just one thing. It's a series of things that come to a point to bring that architect the information and knowledge he needs to design a building properly.
Especially in an evolving market. I think that's the thing that I'm seeing a lot is, just trying to stay on top of what they're asking. And there's no better place. And then in the middle of it, this is, I was having a reflective thought about it just yesterday. There's the goal and the initiative, and then there's the implementation of it. So as we see these new code changes and we see this progress being made to try to make a better built environment and a more efficient built environment, it's the implementation of that and the experiences that come out of it that become really important knowledge too, and kind of keeping track of it.
It is. And consider also, a lot of folks don't remember this. A lot of folks were not in the business at this time. Up until the year 2001, there were only 16 divisions in a project manual based on the CSI format, 16 divisions to build that entire building. Today's world, there's over 40 divisions.
Wow.
40 sections. So, the knowledge base has exploded. And if you're talking to the architect, you better know. You better know your competition, and the codes. So.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed talking with you today, Roy.
Laura, thank you so much. Very complimented that you would consider me for your podcast.
Of course.
I have a lot of respect for your group. A tremendous amount of respect for your group and what you do for design professionals, and equally for manufacturers. So thank you from an industry perspective.
Oh, well, thank you. I know that the feeling is mutual. I know when we were creating our list, you were at the very top of it right away. So
thank you. Great compliment. Great compliment.
Absolutely.
So have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Spec Shaman Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our show and leave us a review. The Spec Shaman Podcast is produced by Laura Elliott and Brad Blank. A huge thank you to our guests who made this show possible. building product manufacturers who want to increase their specification opportunities, please visit specshaman.com or ronblank.com. Thanks all for this episode, folks. See you next time.